Are you looking for a retro, janky shmup where you play a weak little tank that tries to hit all the nostalgia points of those games from your childhood, but unfortunately pretty much hits all the bad ones? Blazing Trail is one of those games that you might put in your Nintendo with rose-tinted goggles, only to wonder why you ever thought it was good after an hour or two of frustration, but still not entirely hate the experience. This game is straightforward. Sure, there's a hint of story, but it's like what you'd get in an instruction manual. You pop right in, get told the controls, and probably die pretty quickly. Then read the controls more thoroughly before trying again. At a glance, you move up or sideways through top-down military bases, mowing down bad guys and saving prisoners. Enemies are in set places and generally just show up in front of you, but there are some surprises such as helicopters doing strafing runs. The first jank shows up in those questionable NES-style controls. You remember those games that tried to put in directional movement, despite the early controllers not really being meant for that? Your tank's movement for this game manages to somehow capture that feeling, even when playing with an analog stick, which was specifically made for smooth all-directional movement. Trying to line up your movement, get through narrow passages, avoid landmines, and dodge bullets gives that very familiar retro feel. It sometimes doesn't feel great, but it seems to be a feature of the game. And it gets even worse with the first boss fight that forces you to be moving directly right, so you have to fight against the movement to diagonally attack the boss that is above you, and you cannot attack directly upwards for the entire boss fight. Speaking of attacking upwards, it's not enough that the movement is janky, the weapons are too. You have 3 weapons in increasing power, a machine gun that only fires up, and rockets and a laser which fire where your tank is facing. The gun and rockets are infinite ammo, so there's no reason not to just hold down both those buttons so that they're always firing. It would feel more convenient to have them just be one button, or not even one at all, and always fire like in Vampire Survivors. The laser has full range and massively more damage. The trade-off is it takes time to recharge, so you can't just spam it. There are infrequent power-ups such as a spread for your laser or speed boost, and when you start to get a good run going, it starts to feel a bit more like a good retro arcade game. However, it is hard to keep that up. Just like those frustrating old games, if you are able to hit an enemy, they also have you in their firing path. Enemy trucks deal damage to you, and if they get you against the terrain, you take chain damage and get ripped apart. You're constantly weaving back and forth out of attack paths. Infantry dies in one hit, and you can turn them into roadkill, which is good fun, but almost everything else is a damage sponge. Landmines show up right before they hit you, so you have to just inch through some areas. Your landmines are somewhat questionable in value. There are a few enemies they're great at dealing with, such as these small helicopter bombs in the second area. The mix of inching forward to avoid bombs, weaving in and out of enemy projectile lines, and fleeing from vehicles to avoid being run over can slow things down considerably, yet the arcade vibe makes you think it is meant to be pedal to the metal, non-stop action, and when it does give you that feeling, briefly it is at its best. Still, this is a graphically pretty game that both looks modern and retro. It is colorful with varied areas. The hitbox for projectiles and enemies is accurate. Some projectiles can blend with scenery or even disappear behind foliage, but that is also a staple of retro gaming. If you are a fan of NES games like Jackal, or those tough arcade games, the things listed as drawbacks might be appealing. If that sounds confusing and you do not have the retro nostalgia, this is a game that is hard to recommend. If you hear about this, totally get what the game like this is, and still have a longing for the good old times though, this is a decent, almost good game. Furthermore, it has co-op campaign play, which unquestionably improves things, and it has several PvP modes. This is a neat idea, but it feels like it is going to be the most unused mode in a game ever. Still, worth mentioning they have it. Getting through the game and its boss fights wavers between fun and frustrating, and the more careful it forces you to play, the less enjoyable it becomes. Blazing Trail earns a 5 out of 10.